It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello and welcome to the Northwoods Cooking Show. I'm your host, Uncle Roy, and it's that time of year again. It's the fall. And today's subject matter is pumpkin, and we're going to be making lots of pumpkin dishes. Well, not lots, but as many as we possibly can in this amount of time. So let's get cracking, or cooking. Cracking and cooking, because I got to crack in 2 eggs. First of all, we're going to be making pumpkin bread. Everybody loves pumpkin bread. And if you get the large can of pumpkin, you can do the 2 recipes that we have in mind here. I'm going to do the pumpkin bread and then my famous pumpkin bars that everybody just loves. I know I've been getting emails from people that keep asking at this time of year, what's your pumpkin bar recipe? Here, it's going to be coming up right after this one. So let's get cracking with this one. We want 2 eggs. And we're going to take and just whip these up for about 30 seconds or so, or just, get them mixed up a little bit. So then, to the eggs, we need 1 cup of brown sugar. I like to take and just scoop out my brown sugar right out of the bag, and then I can just level it off by pressing it on the side of the bag. And there you go. And let's level it off. We put in 1 cup of sugar, brown sugar. And then just twist that. And remember, I always tell you to save your twisties. Here's what comes in handy. And that'll keep the brown sugar from drying out. There you go. And then along with that, we need half a cup of vegetable oil. And that's what makes the bread extremely moist and not dry. And I find that true with any of my recipes, cakes, etc. If you have vegetable oil in there, or shortening, mostly oil, it makes your recipe then much moister. It doesn't dry out then. In the olden days, we used to use lard all the time, or just shortening, and that kind of dries out things if you put in too much flour. But the oil is what makes it moist. So, we got that. And then I need a 1/3 cup of water. There it is, just under half. There we go. I don't know what happened to my 1/3 cup. It's somewhere, I don't know. Storage, who knows? And then just 1, is it 15, 16? I think it's a 15. Doesn't matter, 15, yeah. That's 1 regular can size of pumpkin. And just put that right in there. And we'll just take and blend this up. And that's it for the mixer. We're done with the mixer now. Because when we put in the dry ingredients, we want to use a wooden spoon, remember that? Because we don't want to activate that gluten to make it tough and hard. Only in yeast bread you want to activate the gluten, not in this. So, for our dry ingredients, we need 1 3/4 cup of flour, and just the all-purpose flour is fine in this recipe. If you want to, you could substitute and use cake flour, and that would make it much finer and lighter. You don't have to, but you can. But just remember, if you're using cake flour, to add an extra tablespoon or 2 to it, because it's such fine, it loses its density, and so it's not, volume-wise, it's not making up for it, because it's a finer grain of flour. Okay, so we got the flour. Then we need soda and baking powder. I need a teaspoon of my baking soda. And remember now, if you haven't baked in a long time, stir that up, your baking soda and powder, because the top is just has, I want this all in here. Cut. Okay, I was getting carried away there and put it in the wrong container. But I got it out and I got it in here. So we got the soda, and like I said, you want to mix this up because that top layer gets deactivated from sitting in your cupboard for so long. And so by mixing it up, it'll just, it gets more active, makes it lighter and fluffier. Of course, for me, I do a lot of baking, so I really don't have to worry about it that much. So half teaspoon of baking powder. And then we're going with a teaspoon of kosher salt. This is where we put in the kosher salt because we're baking and we want it to be light and fluffy. Sea salt might not do it as well. I like to do the kosher for baking, and sea salt, like I said, for dressings and salads, etc., for topical, Put a teaspoon cinnamon. And you can just scrape these off on the inside of the containers. It works out just fine. And if you don't happen to have pumpkin pie spice, rather than going out and paying $5 for a little container of it, you can make your own. I barely just have enough in there. I'm going to save my container and mix them up later on. I can just put that whole thing in there. Oh, it's a teaspoon. Exactly. But you can do, what is it? Teaspoon of cinnamon, half teaspoon of ginger, quarter teaspoon of cloves, and a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. And you can mix that all together. And that'll be your pumpkin pie spice, and then just put it in a separate container and measure out what you need for your pumpkin pie spice. So I'm going to save my empty container and mix up some more. I'll make up, 4 times batch or something, put it back in here. There we go. Now, the dry ingredients, remember, always whisk it. That's going to break up any lumps in your sodas or powders, etc. And it also incorporates all the spices together along with the flour so that we can get an even distribution of everything into our batter. Which we almost didn't do. And then that gets dumped right into the liquids. Now this is where we use the wooden spoon so we don't activate the gluten. We don't want to mix this up anymore with the mixer. And this is a quick bread, and it's true with almost all your quick breads. You just want to use a wooden spoon when you mix your dry ingredients and adding them to your wet ingredients, just so you don't activate that gluten. And you just want to stir until everything's all moistened, and then you can stop. And it doesn't matter if you got lumps in there, that's fine. Those are going to take and cook out, because that's the way quick breads are. The lumps dissipate when it's baking, but overacting that gluten is what's going to make your bread really tough and hard then, so just let it stop it, just like that. Now, since it's pumpkin bread, that's it for the recipe, and then we'll throw it in the oven for about 50 minutes to an hour. But, I gotta Uncle Roy it up a little bit here. I'm gonna put in a quarter cup of walnuts, and then I'm just gonna crack those up a little bit. I'll just take the bottom of this pot and just smash them up a little bit so they get broken into some pieces. Because you don't want to make great big huge chunks in there, You can just take your nut chopper or whatever, but if you got something convenient, go for it. And that's it for that. Quarter cup of the nuts. And you don't have to put these in. This is just optional in case you have allergies or anything. And, be right back. Okay, and then I just put in a quarter cup of raisins. That's my extras for the pumpkin bread. Now I just stuck it in the oven. You put it in there in your pan up 2/3 full. And if you have any batter left over, I usually take and put them in little muffin cups, and bake those off too. And those only take 20 minutes. So that way, because you got way too much batter. And now we leave that in the oven at 325 for 50 to 60 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. And then when that's done, we'll be right back. Okay, now that pumpkin bread was really good, wasn't it? I added up a little decoration here. In the meantime, go ahead. It's getting into the fall, so we gotta get some little fall decorations here, because then my next show is going to be on Oktoberfest, so we want to get a little into the mood. So now, to get on with the show, we're gonna do my famous pumpkin bars. Remember this one, I get people asking for this recipe all the time, constantly, especially this time of year. So I just thought, I've sent out so many emails already, I thought, well, I'll just take and do another episode of it so that you can get it. And write this one down. It's a fabulous, it's cake-like. Instead of like a flat, hard bar, it's more cake-like. And this is the same recipe that I entered at the state fair and didn't win the bars because they said they were cake-like. So entered it I just poured the same batter into a bundt pan, baked that off, and entered that and won in the vegetable category for a vegetable cake. So things can work out either way. It doesn't matter, one way or another. We're going to get it together. So for this one, we're going to take and put in 4 eggs. And again, now when you're doing your eggs, it is always best to try to have them at room temperature if you can, because when they're warm, they take and they can whip up fluffier and higher and thicker to make your product cakes, whatever, cookies, etc., much lighter and fluffier if your eggs are much lighter and fluffier. So the cold will weigh them down so they don't get as high, but if you have them at room temperature, you can get lots of volume. That's the word I was looking for, the volume. So we're gonna have 4 eggs. Along with this, we need 1 2/3 cup of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. So it's like, I'm thinking of maybe trying to sometimes sugar-free using the Splenda substitute, and I'm sure it'll work just fine. Or you can do half Splenda and half sugar. You can do that too. They even sell it that way too. So we're gonna do 4 eggs, 1 2/3 cup sugar, and I got a half, and a little touch more, 2/3. And then I need a cup of oil. And I know I'm going to run out here, so I got my backup here ready to go. We're going to use it up first. Recyclables. Just bought this. If you want to stay tuned for my Oktoberfest show, it's going to be fabulous. And let's see, that was 1 cup of oil. And then we need 1 can of pumpkin, and this is the 15-ounce can. Now, if you remember when we did the pumpkin bread, I had a large can. Well, that's 2 of the small cans. So this is the second half of it. I froze it, and I can use it to use. I saved it and use it in my pumpkin bars. So it's just 1 regular-sized can, which is 15 ounce. So get a large can and divide it in half, and save that half. There you go. You're not going to waste anything, because that larger can is much cheaper, is what I'm trying to get around to building up to. So then we'll just mix these up. All right, we got that mixed up nice. Now we're going to make the dry ingredients. For this, we need 2 cups of flour. And I'm going to put this in a small bowl, because we're going to take and mix these dry ingredients up first. So there's quite a few ingredients here. Oh, I just can't get that. Sometimes it's a little harder to scrape off on the inside of your container to make it level. Come on, get out. But it is important to make sure that it is level. As I mentioned before, even the slightest teaspoon can make it harder, tougher, drier. So you want to make sure that you get just the exact amount in there. And then along with that, we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Whoop. And let's see this. And remember too now, I always tell you this little tip to mix it up if you haven't baked in a long time, because it's deactivated on the top there. So you want to mix that up so you get a good batch of baking powder so you makes your product rise better. And that was a teaspoon of cinnamon. Or 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, I'm sorry. And 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Oh no, if I didn't put in the 2 teaspoons, I'd have flat bars. These are gonna be light and fluffy. I need another teaspoon of baking powder. And we need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And 1 teaspoon of pickle salt. And you know the kosher salt makes everything lighter and fluffier and has less sodium. And that's true because when they make kosher salt, it's flake salt, so they shave it. It's not grind up regular. So there's less amount of product in the spoon, so that's why there's less sodium. But spoonful for spoonful, kosher salt makes everything lighter and fluffier. Then we use the wire whisk, and you want to mix these up. And the reason being is so that everything is distributed well and evenly, so that your cake rises nice, or your bars. Same thing, because this is a cake-like recipe. But it also will take and help to break down your lumps of baking powder or soda if you happen to have any. So when you bite into it, you don't get that big lump of baking soda. Ish. Oh, I hated that as a kid. And we'll just pour this right into our batter. Very simple to do, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's very easy. And these are just delicious. And now we're going to take and just mix this up with a spoon. Or, I got a spatula. You know what I mean. You don't want to use the mixer because we don't want to activate that gluten. And that's so important. Because, well, especially in competition, you never want to do that. But if you did activate the gluten, you're using the mixer now. So this is where the part that everybody has is like, oh, how come your bars are so much nicer than mine, and blah, 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 use the same recipe, etc., etc. Well, you might have used the mixer when you're mixing this part up. I mean, it's easier, yeah, quicker, yeah, fine. But you're activating that gluten, and that'll make your bars more flatter, not rise as fluffy as what they could be. It also takes and makes the cake more tougher and not as smooth and light. And you're thinking, oh, make it really smooth, mix it a long time, and well, then you're activating that gluten, and then it gets all tough and rubbery. That's what it gets, like, rubbery by into it. And that's what it's like then if you overactivate your gluten. That's what, in layman's terms and easy terms on the sand, it gets rubbery. You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean. So you don't have to mix this up completely until if you have some lumps in there, that's fine. Now, this is going to go into our rectangular pan. And just be sure to spray it. Now, like I told you, my stuff's all in storage. I had to get this dark pan. So remember, when using a dark pan, turn your temperature down by 25 degrees because this will absorb heat and burn the bottom of your bars or anything that you bake. So you just want to make sure that if you use the darker kind like this, just turn the temperature down by 25. But the temperature is a normal, if you had the regular, aluminum tin ones, 350 degrees, and we're going to bake them for about 25 to 30 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the middle Comes out clean, the simple toothpick test. And that's it. These are our pumpkin bars. We'll just bake them off. And I like to give it a little tap, get rid of any air bubbles. And when it's all done, we'll do the cream cheese frosting. Ooh, to die for. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, now we have our pumpkin bars. Now we're gonna make the cream cheese frosting. I'm just making a small batch, so what I have is just 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1/4 cup of butter, and 3 ounces of softened cream cheese. Now I'm going to soften up just a little bit more. And just to soften up, put that in the microwave for about 20 seconds. That just helps to soften it up. We don't want to melt it, we don't want to cook it. Just want to soften it so that when we mix it with the mixer, it gets thoroughly blended, so it gets light and fluffy. It's just not in big old chunks all over the place. And I forgot, we need a pinch of salt. The salt will help cut down the excessive sweetness of the powdered sugar. And then I just need a teaspoon of vanilla. And then that's it. And then we just take and frost our bars. That simple. So I hope you really enjoy these. I know this is like one of my most requested recipes. Everybody asks for every year. I just love it. I get them requests around this time of the year and around Christmas. You know, people like it for holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas at time. It's just a wonderful, wonderful bar. Like I said, it's like a cake-like bar rather than being a flat, hard bar. So we just frost this up and then eat it. And it's very good, but best if you have it chilled. But the cream cheese, you want to keep chilled anyway after you frost it. But the chilled cake, the bars, is just wonderful when it's cold. So we hope you enjoy these pumpkin recipes. We hope you have a nice season. So from the Northwest Cooking Show, for myself, I want to say, eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine. Bye-bye. Okay, so those were the pumpkin bars. Oh my God, those are so good. Ooh. Okay, now for the third pumpkin recipe. We're going to be making a pumpkin chiffon pie. Ooh, yummy yummies. So for this is a no-bake pie also, so we don't stick it in the oven, except I made my graham cracker crust ahead of time. You can always use a store-bought one. But for your graham cracker crust, I ran it through the food processor, a package and a half of graham crackers, a 1/4 cup of sugar, or you can use Splenda, and a stick of butter, which is 1/2 cup, melted butter. And then grind up your crackers in the food processor with your sugar, pour that into a bowl, add your melted butter to that, mix that, and put that in the pan, and then just take your measuring cup and flatten out and press up against the side of the pie pan. Then I bake this in the oven at 350 for 10 minutes and then just let it cool completely. For this I need a 1/2 cup of cold water. Halloweeny. Ooh, see? Ooh, scary, scary. And in the 1/2 cup of cold water, we're going to dissolve 1 packet of unflavored gelatin. In my saucepan, I have 3/4 cup of milk. We're going to bring this to a simmer. And What's a simmer? Remember? We'll just turn this on the heat for about a medium, and until you get the little teeny tiny bubbles all around the edge of the milk, around the edge of the pan. That tells you it's a simmer. And when we get the simmer, we can take and add our gelatin. So we'll be right back in just a second. Okay, there we go. It's almost like glucose. Then we're going to take and pour this into our simmered milk. Then, when that's dissolved, we're going to put in a cup of brown sugar, and then we'll stir this up until it dissolves. And we can take this off the heat then. And now, to this, we need 1 cup of pumpkin, a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon, and a ½ teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Gotta have that kosher salt. So now we'll take and put this in the refrigerator for about 1.5 hours. And after 1.5 hours, it'll thicken up. Then we'll put that in, or add 1.5 cups of whipped topping, you know, like your Cool Whip or whatever in the tub, already pre-whipped. 1.5 cups of whipped cream into that. Fold that in together, pour it in the pie shell, and then let that firm up and refrigerate for about 4 hours. Then we'll have our pumpkin chiffon pie. So that's it for this episode. So we'll just wait until we get everything chilled in time. We'll be right back for the ending. Okay, now we got the finished pumpkin chiffon pie. Ooh, can't wait to try this out. Mmm. And then you can just take and put a little dollop of whipped cream on top. Mmm. And then there we have, ooh, almost lost it, our pumpkin chiffon pie. So from the Northwoods Cooking Show, I want to say, eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine, and happy pumpkin eating. Bye-bye.
Thank you.